Section 2, inputting your data. We're actually looking at the farm in a completely different way than you would normally look at your farm or your farm business. So if you've got different enterprises, for example, livestock, arable, dairy, we start looking at breaking the farm down into individual enterprises to get individual reports.
Yes.
So a way that I have been using in the past to help farmers understand that is using a mind map. So looking at the farm then and then breaking it down into enterprises, it's slightly different to how you would have a normal approach.
Okay.
So if you take it that that's your farm, and then on this demo farm we've got arable, we've got potatoes, we've got livestock, and because we've got livestock you've also got a forage enterprise because the livestock will get fed. So this is your arable, potatoes, livestock and forage. And in each of the arables sections you've then got 4 enterprises because we're going to break it down. So we've got spring barley, winter barley, oilseed rape and winter wheat.
Yes.
Potatoes, we've got 1 potato enterprise for this purpose, and in the livestock section we've got breeding sheep.
Yeah.
If you had suckler herds and replacements and things, it would then go into here. Your forage, again, you can have it as 1 big forage enterprise, or you could break it down even more into pasture and maybe in for hill or something. Does that make sense, having it laid out like that to you?
Yeah, absolutely, that's very clear.
Right, okay, and then you would know that these are the enterprises that you're just about to set up.
Yes.
So the next thing we need to think about is what is the snapshot of the business that we're trying to capture as well. So harvest, I think harvest's easy.
Yes.
Arable farming's easy. When we come to the livestock, it gets a little bit more complicated. So what we try to do as best as we can is tupping to tupping for your breeding sheep, weaning to weaning for your suckler herd, and your beef enterprise is a little bit more complicated, but you have to have a start and an end. Capture them. A lot of them fit quite nicely into an October-November sort of start of a year, and they all fit into there. So when you add a new farm here, you'll get the choice of a live farm, which is a real farm, or a test farm. So you could use a test farm for budget purposes, or if you were looking to take on an extra piece of land, or buy a new farm or something. So for this purpose we'll do a test farm.
Okay.
If you want to just fill in the details on here, so it's just a demo. And we're looking at organic or conventional systems. We're asking for average rainfall for your area. There's questions here on subsoils and topsoils, and what you'll be able to do is compare later on when you're looking at other alternatives. We're asking for region because when we get to reports, you'll be able to have regional reports as well as national reports. And then save that page. So you would now go into view production years. And obviously there's nothing in there because this is a new farm for you. And this is where we're looking at the production year, which we spoke about earlier. So say 2017-18 is harvest 18. 18-19 would be harvest 19. So we'll use a 17-18 just now. So if you go into the no enterprises and highlight that, and we'll add in the enterprises. So this is the start of adding in. So your data is broken down into the enterprise details, the production for those enterprises, and then the cost section. So if we go into the enterprise section first, and we'll set up the enterprises like we discussed earlier on. So in this booklet here, we've got details of it broken down.
So we need to add the wheat, spring barley, the winter barley, and the oilseed rape.
Yes, so just add. So you're adding a wheat.
And shall I add them one at a time? So I fill the information in here first, or can I go straight to here and add barley?
No, you would add one at a time. So you'd choose wheat and then give the enterprise details on what the wheat is. So the enterprise details is looking at the area that you're farming, and it's asking what the season is, so is it winter or spring, first or second, etc.
Conventional, winter is first.
And it's group 4. So the operations performed on this crop, we're looking for the cultivation, the hectares that have been cultivated, light, medium and heavy, and also if there was drilling. And the purpose of this is to, later on, it's used for the weighting values for the fixed costs. This is a new approach that we've taken, and what we're trying to do here is, I suppose, look for min-till, or if somebody's ploughing and rolling. So I would say that if you'd ploughed and rolled, it would be heavy and light.
Heavy and light, yes.
Yeah, and you'd put in the total hectares.
So where are we?
62.
Oh, yeah, 62, sorry. Medium is nothing. Heavy is 62.
Yeah, and the number of treatment passes, that's like looking for the fertilizer and sprayer, so we're just looking for the actual number that you've done rather than the number of hectares.
Right, so it's 9. Save.
Okay. And then you would enter the other enterprises as you go along.
Okay.
And what I suggest is the way that it's set up just now is it's done alphabetically, so it's, you know, if you're it's easier if you have those alphabetically as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and when you go into the other bit.
Commodity quality. So this is for feed. Yep. Nope. No. So again, light cultivation. 78. That's 9. So this will organise it alphabetically?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's quite important when you put the name up as well.
Yeah.
I'd encourage you, if you're putting just, you know, if you just put barley in there and didn't put spring and winter, then you'd maybe get confused later on.
Yes. Okay.
So your potato enterprise down here. So we've done a lot of work on the potatoes recently, just with going from the original Farmbench to the new Farmbench, having taken guidance from a lot of the farmers that were involved originally, and we've including things like, well, you can split them out into wear and seed, and also irrigation and that, which is very important.
Okay. So I select on here, I select potatoes. So as we're only growing one to a potato,
Yeah, you could call it the variety. If you had different varieties, you could put the variety name in there. But
so conventional, it's where
and fresh.
That was fresh. Market is packing.
Yeah. So it doesn't allow you to pick something if you've picked the wrong one, really. It's quite clever that way. And this is all the varieties that we have. It might be that we don't have it, so you can always put it in as other.
Okay.
And storage, obviously a big part of the potato enterprises. So we look for some details on how the potatoes have been stored. So if it's in storage, or is it sold from the field?
I see. And sold from fields, that would be an additional tonnage that's added back. This is our yield.
Yeah, so that's your yield, yes. And again, we're looking for operations performed. They're slightly different. We've got some cultivation, bed forming, bed tilling, destoning and potato planting. So we're looking at the hectares that those operations took part on. And then a number of irrigation passes, yes.
Okay.
So that's you set up a potato enterprise as well. Now for livestock. So as you can see from the drop down there's quite a lot of livestock enterprises you could have chosen. For this purpose, we're just doing a breeding sheep. So breeding sheep, you've got suckler, and then you would have probably a replacement, so you would have a young stock one on the back of that. And for the breeding flock, you would also have a breeding ewe replacement possibly. And you've got your lamb finishing or store lambs, and then dairy. You'd set up a dairy and probably a livestock enterprise. So you've got lots of options of breaking your farm down into many enterprises.
So we're doing a breeding flock here because it's breeding sheep?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's looking for your land classification, so SDA and non-SDA.
Okay.
And then we start looking at the ewe percentages and how it's made up with the rams. So this helps us as well with weights and comparisons.
I see. So yes, we put different breeds in between the percentage of breed that's in there as well.
Yeah.
So
Terminal cross.
Terminal cross.
And then the percentage.
Oh, I see. Terminal cross is 100%. The rams. Texel. Percentage of Texel is 80.
And then choose another breed.
So we had another one in there as well, so we can
Yeah,
add the Suffolk in there as well.
Yes.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
So Texel's in at 80. Texel at 20.
And we're looking for the livestock size here because we use that again for weightings,
Yes.
so for the grazing, etc.
And then lambing pattern. So we are on spring indoor lambing. Housing type. Period 10 weeks.
So we're starting looking at the numbers now that are actually in here. So we're looking for the number of mature ewes, your shearling ewes and your ewe lambs.
And this is taken, if we're talking the breeding seasons, the breeding season is, it's obviously spring lambing, so this will be taken in the autumn.
Yeah, so for example, if you're lambing about April, then this would be tupping to tupping would be October, November would be your start. So the opening number would be at, say, the 1st of November.
Shearing ewes, 2, 3.
And we're not lambing. So it's asking for number of ewe lambs, but these are the ewe lambs that would go to the tup. So at this point in time, you have no lambs in this flock, because we're looking for the production out of the sheep.
Yes.
Then the ewes are starting with nothing at foot.
So we put in the lambs the ewes have further into the programme?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and by this time they'll have been weaned out last year.
Yeah. 33 rams. 3 of them aren't any good. And we're using EBVs.
Yes.
Save that.
So that's all your enterprises now set up.
We've just got forage to do.
Oh, we have got forage, you're right. Because we're going to feed the sheep.
So we've got
grass.
Forage grass. Add again. Conventional. So what would a standing crop? That would be if someone grew you stubble turnips?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
So you can we do forage reports now, which we didn't do before. So that I think is going to add another element to it as well. So especially for organic farmers, you know, if they're using them as fertility crops and things. So I think going forward that'll be some really good discussion coming out of that.
And allocating costs to the grass so you know what it's costing to produce that. Yeah.
So although you're setting up a forage crop and you'll get a forage enterprise report, the costs to feed these animals is also allocated in the individual report.
Yeah.
So it's not double counted, but it's split out where necessary. So yeah, a lot of complicated calculations behind the scenes, but I think it'll be really useful.
And this is in this case with this, as we're grazing the sheep on it, that's why we're selecting grazing weeks rather than if you were silage, you do a dry matter kilos.
Yeah, or more so maybe for dairy as well. Maybe dairy would record dry matter per kilo more importantly. And we're looking here as well for the area harvested. So if you've done hay or silage, and you can do it clamped or baled, because the dry matter difference there, or cut and carry.
Okay. In cultivations, it's in permanent, so all we do is we go to grass maintenance.
Yeah, we've done 50 hectares. So if you've drilled or if you've been reseeding or something, there would be some cultivation stuff in there. Yeah.
Okay, so then we can save that.
Perfect. Now you've set up all your enterprises. So now that you've done your enterprises on there, we'd then look at the production. So we're looking at what have these enterprises actually produced in that time. So you're looking at your outputs from your combinable crops, and then you're looking for your outputs from your breeding sheep, etc. So whichever way you want to.
Okay, well, let's start with livestock.
Okay.
Okay.
So you'd go into your breeding news section here. So the breeding info here is for the whole flock. We don't expect anybody, when you've had your scanning done, we don't expect people to have had the ewes, the shearlings and the lambs separated out. So we just put it all in as one for the your breeding info, which is here. So if you go into edit.
Topping number is the total number. Total you scanned.
And scanned in lamb.
And then we put in the number of singles.
Yes.
Twins. And above. And the number that's lambs. 40.
Yeah. And what you find is if you're doing this for the first time, some of these numbers is maybe not something you've been recording. So it's a good exercise to even start looking at these numbers now for 2019, because a lot of this information, they're scanning just now. So it's quite a good thing to have that written down in even this booklet at this stage, so that when you come to do your upload, it's a lot easier.
It's gathering the data to enter into the program.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the breeding info then. Do we now need to do the outgoing stuff?
So what we're looking for now is the outgoing. So if you think of, say, we're taking this from the 1st of November, we're looking for sales and deaths, anything that's left between there and the 31st of October.
Yes.
So we're trying to capture everything that's gone out. And
so from the 1st of November 2017 to the 31st of October 2018.
Yes.
Okay.
And that could be sales for forward breeding, or it could be cull sales. It's anything that's been sold out as a breeding ewe from that enterprise.
So the first box here in terms of sales should be a total number.
Yes. Which is this one here.
So it's there. Okay. Okay.
And the average value was £60.42 for those 280 animals.
And it
automatically, yes. With no compulsory sales.
None were transferred out.
No.
And then we had deaths and casualties, 105.
And then the incoming. So we've purchased 43.
So purchased 43. We can put a price in there as well.
An average, yeah, and it totals it up.
And transferred almost none.
No. So for this breeding sheep enterprise, we will be transferring in, but we'll be transferring them in as shearlings from
I see, that's where they've cut from the previous year.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So now I select shearlings. Opening animals are 283.
We haven't sold any. And the breeding info is for the whole flock, so you've already entered that, so you don't need to enter that again.
So I just need to do the incoming. And this is where we've got, transferred in, because they've come from last year's.
That's right.
Yeah, the last year's lambs. And the value you're putting there is an estimated value?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've transferred them out of the breeding ewe replacements at £80, so you're not showing that you're making any money. It's a transfer in and transfer out. So this is used for the replacement cost.
Yes.
For the reports. So we've just got some deaths, I think, outgoing deaths.
Oh, sorry. So okay, we just got
24 died.
24.
That's it.
Okay.
So
So we've got nothing on new lambs,
No.
which just leaves us on rams. So outgoing. We sold 14. No compulsory sales, none were transferred out, and then we lost 3.
And some incoming.
There's some incoming. So we purchased 10. 600 pounds ahead. And the 3 were transferred in.
Transferred in, yes.
About 500. And again, those transfer would have been...
They'll be in another enterprise. Yeah. And we should have had perhaps another enterprise set up here for the replacements for the year.
For the ram replacements. Yeah. Okay.
So that's we've no other other income we should have.
So we've got lambs and other income on here still.
Yeah, so your lambs are your lamb sales or the outgoing. So this is your production from this enterprise.
Which isn't... Is this information here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go to ladder.
Lambing information.
Go to that. So born alive, 2168. There was 100. Number of orphans,
None.
0. Number of died in the first 48 hours, number 7, 9. After 49 hours.
And these are very difficult numbers to know, especially in the middle of lamb. You know, in the middle of lambing, you're probably not recording this normally. Yeah. So I would say probably first year, there's a little bit of guesstimation going on, but it's okay just to get into the way of it, because you're going to roughly know you're definitely going to know your scanning number, and you're definitely going to know your number of lambs weaned, and them alone are two quite important numbers, you know. But for future, if you had something like this being recorded as you were going through, or especially at the end of lambing, rather than waiting till this time of year and looking backwards.
Okay, so now let's do weaning info. Average weaning age, 20 days. 30 kilos. Number that died.
So that's weaning to sale.
Which then gives us the total number of...
So the lambs reared, that will be the total number that we'll be looking for, that is either sold in the year or retained to fatten over the winter.
Yes.
So these will all leave the enterprise by the 31st of October.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, so what is produced, it either comes in as shearlings, or it's sold, or they died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're now looking at...
we can now do...
what sales are. Yeah, so for this purpose we've sold, the majority of them is finished.
Yes.
And we've also retained some as well. So the retained ones would be the ones that you'll be keeping for your replacements going forward as well.
So, the total number, it's the number of
lambs
finished. That's
yes, we need to. Yeah, these.
So it gives the total value of sales. So they've got a live weight. So it's their average live weight they were sold at.
Yeah.
Average. So that's got to be 41.
So put in the per head. Yeah.
That's it.
Back to front, isn't it? So yeah, that's it.
And dead weight So that automatically gives us an idea of how well we're producing them as well.
Yeah, and everything that we're asking for and everything that we get out at the end is simply to make you ask the questions, or are you making the right management decision for for your enterprises?
Yeah.
And is that the best sales option that you have for your animals?
Okay, so we save that.
Yep.
And then we need to do.
Retained.
This is retained at weaning then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep these 103 lambs past the 31st of October.
Okay.
So some of these will go into the replacements.
So we say we're going to keep 103, and we're going to put a price in that we will then transfer in next year.
Yes.
At
Yeah, and you have to put a value on this and make sure that you're accounting for all of them, just to give a total production for your sheep report, really.
Yeah. Okay, we'll save that.
Yeah.
So that is all the bare bones in there for our Livestock Enterprise.
Yes.
Okay, so on to the combinables.
Mhm.
So if I start with spring barley, so we'll do it all on estimates.
Yep. Yeah, so what we find a lot of the time is we're working at sort of this time of the year. Not everybody will have sold everything.
Yes.
So you have the opportunity to enter your estimates on roughly what you've harvested tonnes per hectare,
Yes,
roughly what
roughly
the
we're gonna sell it
sale
for.
price is. To give us it gives you a good starting point, doesn't it? And you can always revisit and update these
As we go through the
as you go through the
season.
year, yeah.
Okay.
And your straw sales, so that's your other income.
Yes.
And I think it's quite important that goes in, especially even if you've got a livestock enterprise
Mhm.
and you're selling that straw to the livestock
You have to
enterprise.
understand there's a value of that going out
Yeah,
and
it's-
then coming back in
Yeah,
again.
especially this year, I think, with the value
Yeah.
of straw.
Okay. So let's do winter barley.
Just something you have to be careful with. If you use estimates and you only put some in estimates and some in actual,
Mhm.
the reports will only pick up actual. So you can't really
Right.
use both. You could put it into estimates at the beginning like now,
Mhm.
and then make sure the total tonnage, because it's looking for the total
Can you
tonnage.
convert estimates to actuals, or do you have
No,
to?
you physically have to go in and enter it.
Okay. Yeah, let's have a look at actual winter wheat sales.
So on this, we're recording not tonnes per hectare, because
total
you'll
tonnes.
have your total tonnes. So we're expecting this is going to come off invoices.
Mhm.
So you'll have your total values rather than your estimate tonne per hectares and things.
Yes.
The reports will come out on tonnes per hectares, etc. So you can split it from sold and then used on farm. So if you're maybe feeding some to your livestock, you'd put that in there. And again, your straw sales goes in there.
And this used on farm will be seed as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So for the clamp, so it's looking at, because you can be rolling on year, it's not ideal 12 months all the time.
Yes.
So you might be feeding grass that you made last year to the sheep this winter.
Mhm.
So the way that we've done it is you can put in a brought forward, so you're feeding that, I suppose, and then you can also have what you've produced in this year as well. Or you can just have your produced. So we'll say we've done 150 tonnes.
Produced 150.
Yes.
Nothing brought forward.
No. And
Farm
we've not
accurate.
sold anything.
We haven't sold any.
Yeah.
And then in terms of where this grass goes, we'll say actually it uses 150 tonnes
Yeah.
this year. But I see if we said it, okay, they only use 120 tonnes, that means then that carried forward down the bottom here is what would then be carried forward automatically to the
That's
following
right.
year. And I assume would Farmbench then pick that up in the brought forward?
I'd like to think so, yes.
Yes. So yes. And then grazing grass.
Right. So
Okay.
we would have grazed them all. And there was...
16.
So we say an average of 1,100.
Well, that's
Because
100.
some have died.
Yep.
And the number of weeks they were housed for 10, so there'd be 42 weeks
40,
grazed.
42 weeks. Okay. So
you're now going on to...
We're now going to start putting some costs in.
Yes.
So to do that, then we would go back up at the top here.
Yes. And then open up your tools again, up at the top, that's it.
And this is where we get to costs.
Yes.
So we've now recorded everything we've produced. We've told the program what we have, what we've produced with what we have, and now we have to tell it what it cost us. In that split is capital and costs.
Yes.
So your costs are going to be variable costs, and your capitals will also be capital costs.
Yes, that's right. So we've clumped everything together under costs.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do the report, it's total income and then total costs.
Yeah.
So you're getting your cost of production from taking one away from the other.
Okay. So let's start with crop costs then. C cost. And it brings us down into each one.
Yeah. And you can also enter it as a per hectare cost or a total, and it would work it one way or the other.
I see. Grass was nothing. And then into wheat it's 44. And if you're taking off invoices, you'd be better to take off on that right-hand column.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so inorganic fertilizer.
Yeah. So you've got two options of entering your inorganic fertiliser. You can clump it all together, like you say, just take it all off the invoice that you know that you've spent on each enterprise, or you can do it per
nutrients.
Per fertiliser.
Yeah.
So you could enter that you've got urea, the number of tonnes. I don't know if you could add one in just now, just to show you what it looks like. So you would name it.
So if we named it TSP, for triple superphosphate.
Mm-hmm. So we do have some choice of drop down.
Yes.
And what we're looking for here is the N percentage per hectare as well. So so that's quite important for one of the topics that or the subjects that we look at and discuss. So for this reason you've got 0 N.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're looking at.
Yeah.
And this is what we bought in.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought in 40 tonnes of that. The purchase costs
per tonne.
Per tonne, it's going to be tonne, for example. The nitrogen content, is 0.
Yeah. So if you save that. Stop. So now what you would do is allocate that 40 tonnes to which crop that you applied it to.
I see. Yeah.
So you've got 40 tonnes available, and then you'd be able to apply it to whichever crop
we wanted it to. And then let's put 10 tonne on that. And then if we go back to total inorganic fertiliser.
Yeah, so that's option one. The other option is that you would just put in, if you think, well, I know that I spent £3,000 for, so for example here, the average on spring barley was £138 a hectare. I know that that's what my spend was. You can add it in there instead.
So these figures, because we've added the TSP, these figures have automatically been blocked out, so we can't add anything to that.
You can do one or the other.
You do one or the other, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I go back to my TSP,
you would I think you can override that if you go back into the delete.
Just delete that. So total inorganic fertiliser. So this way we then pick up on spring barley, and we can say we've got 138 pounds a hectare. That was 100 kilos of N. 50, 96, and final oilseed rate 199, 200.
So where would you normally find that information if you were looking for it?
So I could pull that information off Gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Would be my easiest way of doing it. That would give me a total fertiliser cost, and it would give me total N content as well. And you could also then allow in for that, because you'd cost in if you were using straight, so PK, whatever else it may be. You can put all that in there, but you can still put out the nitrogen percentage.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So, organic fertiliser. Organic fertiliser. So this is only on potatoes.
Yeah.
We've got it as a cost per hectare. No. Save that. Okay, and then trace elements are on this page as well. So Spring Valley is 12. Escalacy rate 14. Potatoes is 15. Wheat barley is 3. Winter wheat is 4. Okay. Save that.
So we've got total costs in here this time.
So we've got total costs in here. Okay, so we do it in the right hand column then. So Aussie Dre. Alright.
The beauty is that you could just save this and then go for lunch, or you could go off and do something else and then come back in.
Come back and just slowly,
it saves
slowly
every time, yes, and so you don't have to sit in front of it.
It's a lot better, no?
Yeah.
Now, agronomy fees, where are they?
There. Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes you won't have agronomy fees if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, or you might only have an agronomist for potatoes.
Yeah.
Haulage, and that's only if you know the haulage costs.
Yeah, so at this point the chances are if you've done estimates you won't have your full invoices, so you won't know exactly what your haulage and your levy is. But going forward, when you put in your actuals of your invoices, you should be able to split it out.
Okay.
And we've split out levy now in this in them all, because we're keeping all the sectors the same. So
Yes.
having put all the different programmes together, we're treating all the sectors the same.
Okay. Right. So that's all our crop costs gone in. So move on to livestock costs. So start at the top with feed. And this is where we can have the different feed types in here. So one at a time.
So again, you're adding the total tonnage that you've bought and then allocating it to the enterprises that you've fed it to.
Yeah. So this is lamb creep, and we'll call it creep feed. Total that's 2. Total cost 200. 87, yeah. Was it homegrown? No. As a creep feed? Yes. And then we allocate that, when we've hit save, we then allocate that to an enterprise.
Yes. So you add it in, save it, and then it'll ask you to allocate it, because what it's looking for is what enterprises that are there that it
cost
can
goes against, yeah. So we've got units. Tons, 50 tons of that. Total costs. That was 87% as well. It wasn't homegrown. And it wasn't creep feed. So again, I save that and then I allocate that to
the breeding
how
sheep.
many tons to the breeding sheep.
So if you had put suckler herds and everything, they would all be in that
so
list
you could then
there.
split it out into each individual enterprise.
Yeah.
And you have to wait until it says the cost has been saved before we can move on to the next one. Okay.
That's the
So-
sheep fed.
So, yeah, that's the sheep all fed.
Yeah, I don't
So-
think we'll not have purchased feed. We'll not have purchased forage.
So no purchase forage. Then where do we put in the vet and meds? Oh, I see. Here we go. Okay, so then we go vet and meds. Just quickly, if we go to purchase forage,
You would add in.
that's where you'd add in. And
So it's if you were buying in silage or something for that year. You know, if you'd been short or something, then you would buy in your forage and then feed it to the animals
and you
as well.
allocate it to which enterprise again it went
Yes.
to as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So vet and med. So what do we spend for vet and med?
So it's a total cost again. If you had other enterprises, it would be listed down there.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
livestock contracting is
Yeah.
shearing, scanning,
Trimming, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not machinery contracting costs in there. This is
It's purely
specific
purely
for your enterprise.
and obviously breeding and AI.
which we haven't because we've got rams.
Bedding. So this is where your straw costs would come in
Yeah.
from the Arable Enterprise if
Yes.
you'd
Yeah, or purchased, whatever.
yeah. On stock. Commission transport levy. Again as a total. Sundry livestock costs.
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult because these not necessarily lie in a financial year.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that these are management accounts, not financial accounts.
Yes.
So ideally, what you're looking for is the total spend in that production year.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be out of sync to your financial account sometimes.
Okay. So we're
Labour.
on to labour costs.
So now we're looking at so it's important now where the allocation was when you put in your cultivation passes and things, because this is when this is going to start coming into play. Yeah.
So I need to add all the workers on here now.
Yes, individually.
So the first one, add. He is always unpaid.
So the unpaid labour that we use across all the sectors up and down the whole of the country is £30,000.
Yeah.
So that's looking at your family labour, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
because the way Farmbench is set up, we don't look at personal drawings.
Yeah.
And £30,000 I think is a fair value when we're not looking at any, your house or your cars or any drawings that are taken within that. And the reason behind that is because it then makes everybody
It puts on level playing field, which we have to do.
Yeah, so you know that if you're sitting discussing these numbers with somebody else, that they've treated it exactly the same.
Yes.
And also when the benchmarks are there, you know that you're comparing like for like.
Mm.
And you can put in somebody as part-time, so it could be that it could be dad and yourself, and you would have 50% for dad and 100% for yourself or something. So, you don't have to have everybody at 30, you put it as a pro rata. It also means that you can compare to somebody that's got all paid labour against a farm that's all family labour. So the likes of the night lammer there, we only employ him for 252 hours because he's only there for a short period of time.
But he needs recording and allocating to the livestock.
That's right, we're capturing it. Okay, so we'll just go back into Dad here.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at that there, it looks like Dad has nothing to do with the oilseed rape.
Yes.
So you can actually dig deeper rather than just allocating everything 100% to combinables. Okay. And you can actually go in. So if you go back into edit at combinable.
I see here, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the automatic allocation has been given on the basis of the cultivation passes, but actually oilseed rape should be 0. So you need to make sure that you're entering the percentages fairly and weighted against the other crops as well. But that way, none of the oilseed rape for Dad's going to go against it on the enterprise, so it's an awful lot a better capturing of it.
Just allows you to pull that information out in a bit more detail.
Yeah. And if you had maybe another livestock enterprise, you would make sure that none of the night lammer went against the suckler herd or something. Yeah. It's really giving you the opportunity to dig deeper into, and being more accurate throughout. But what I would suggest you do here just now is hide your labour, your livestock, just to tidy it up.
Just to shrink them back up again, so we can pull that one up, pull the crop costs up. I see.
Yeah.
Pull labour up.
And now we're on machinery costs.
Okay. Right. So, spares and repairs. So again, we put total cost in and split it down per enterprise.
Yes. And you might find as well that there might be spares and repairs in there, maybe for personal vehicles or something, so you have to remember to leave them out and have them in maybe unallocated.
Yeah. So, 16 oils, 38 potatoes.
Yeah. 2.
For livestock.
This is where I think the difficulty is when you first start doing Farmbench, because you don't normally think of splitting them out as a percentage.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I would suggest gut feeling is probably the best way in year 1. Do you think? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, from a recording point of view, it'd be lovely to be able to split it out even more.
Yeah.
And certainly that what we're trying to do. Okay, we're all combinable, but so it's a bit more straightforward. But you do have to take a view. There's certain pieces of equipment are only used for certain things. So if you can pull them out in your accounts into different levels, and that's very good. The same as the vehicle fuel. It's if you then start recording for each operation or for each machine what it's doing, and you can start trying to pull some of that data out.
Yeah, and as I say, year 1's always, I would say, gut feeling. You usually find 60-40, 50-50. You've got a rough idea of what it should look like or could look like.
Yeah. Okay. So, on to hire and leasing.
Yeah, and hire and leasing it's literally something that you hire in without a person.
Yes.
So that's the difference. I would say do not include your HP capital, because that's sometimes, yes,
yeah.
that's right.
So, hire and leasing. And you wouldn't put in a contractor's fee in here, that's where you put it under general contracting.
Yeah, or enterprise specific contracting.
Yeah.
So hire and leasing is a machine without a person. Is the easiest way to remember it.
Okay. And vehicle fuel again. And this includes farm vehicles as well, so it's not just red diesel for tractors.
Yes, yes. What it doesn't include is your personal mileage, so you have to try and remember that if there's anything in there. And sometimes if you're looking at your accounts, you might find there's kerosene under your fuel, so you must make sure that comes out as well, if that's for the houses and things.
Okay. So general contracting.
So it's fencing and that sort of thing, whereas enterprise specific is specifically for that enterprise. Yeah. So for example, if it was you didn't do anything on the oilseed rape at all and everything went specifically to that, you brought somebody in with just a piece of machinery and labour, yes, it would go in there.
That's where you can drill down on the edit buttons here.
Yeah.
So we haven't got any of those, so we'll go straight for enterprise specific. We've got.
So that could be your silage contractor coming in for your grass.
And like for the Sierras, it might be an Avadex. Guy coming to spread Avadex or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the biggie then, which is machinery and equipment depreciation.
Yes. So for this, if you had done it the year before, and you bring the information forward,
pulls all the information across.
It pulls them all automatically through, and it depreciates it automatically by 10%.
Yes.
So because we're starting this from fresh, we'll have to add every single piece of machinery, and we enter the value at second-hand value at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, as if you went out and bought it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will take 10% of that value and then allocate it against the percentage against your enterprise. Okay. So that's how the depreciation's handled on Farmbench.
Right.
No.
So then he was always one of the tractors, wasn't we? So
yeah. No sales, no purchases. So once you save this, save, again the edit button will come up, and you would then put your. And
that's where you put it out, isn't it? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And again, if you find once you've saved this and you find that you haven't used your combine on oilseed rape, you would go in and take it away from that crop that you've not used it for.
Yeah, because you can drill in there and edit that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me just stick my head down for a second. And,
This exercise is actually quite a good one if you just go out and have a wander around the yard and a piece of paper and a pencil and just see exactly what you've got sitting in the shed.
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't be taken from your accounts package because they're written down values, and I think it's quite an interesting process to go through, and it's certainly a lot of conversation comes from it.
I think certainly, speaking from my point of view, as a lot of farmers are quite, arable farmers are quite into their machinery, and we all browse the back of the Farmers Weekly, so it's quite a nice thing to go through and actually get in your mind what equipment's worth.
Yes.
As you say, management accounts tend to depreciate it as a flat rate, whereas actually, you know, sometimes the price of equipment actually goes up.
Yeah.
Actually appreciates.
Yeah.
Which accountants don't understand.
And it's probably one of the areas that out of Farmbench is the one that's most talked about when we start looking at the numbers and things.
Yeah.
And it's probably an area that you can do something about. Your variable costs now maybe are, once you've got on top of them, you can't do so much about as what you can, or at least make different decisions on the back of some of it.
Yeah.
And once you've done this the first year, as I said before, you won't have to do it again. All you'll have to do is update it with new sales or purchases and new machines that you've bought.
Yeah. But also you could readjust the values if you wanted to, if where you felt you...
Yeah, if you think that you've undervalued it, as you see, stuff goes up in price sometimes rather than go down in price, so you can always overwrite it.
Yeah.
And when you're valuing it, you don't have to go, again, you're going to have a rough idea of what that value is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to phone up the local dealer and find out how much they would give for it or anything. So, yeah. Next year, if you sold tractor one, you would then know which one you'd sold, and you could bring in a new tractor as well. So it's worth that extra 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on to property costs.
Property repairs.
So this is all property repairs.
So this is relating to farm buildings and structures. Electricity, that's more like your buildings electricity, so your sheep shed, again making sure you haven't got the house or anything in there.
So you almost have to make an assumption, because where you have a meter that does the drying and buildings and things like that, you'd almost have to then make an assumption as to what is general electricity and then what is drying, storage and refrigeration energy. Yeah. Okay. But again, this might be an opportunity where you want to put a separate meter in, so you can start to meter out some of these costs.
If it highlights it, that's where the costs are going.
Yeah.
And in some enterprises, that's a big cost, isn't it?
Yes. So like the machinery, this is quite a big section, or it can be quite a big section. But I'm guessing what we need to do is put in here things that are relevant to the operation. So you don't put in the shed where you park your cars, but you do put in everything else.
Yes, and buildings under 20 years old, nothing over 20.
Nothing over 20 years old, okay.
And we also have in this section lime, because we depreciate that over 3 years, and 7 years for mole ploughing. So mole ploughing and soil conditioners will also go in this section, just because we need to depreciate it out rather than put it into that enterprise is going to take all the blunt for the whole year, whereas it's a 3 year operation, 3 year depreciation figure. The other thing I would put in here is if you had maybe an old building over 20 years old, but you'd put a new roof on it.
Yes.
You'd put the price, cost for the roof in there, and then that would depreciate out again, rather than put it under property repairs or something.
Yeah.
So this has been a repair to the sheep shed rather than a new sheep shed, but it's better to put that cost in over the 5 years rather than it being all into this enterprise for the 1 year.
Yeah.
That's you.
Let's go allocate it.
Well done.
Okay.
Good. Yes, we're nearly finished. Rent and land values. So we enter a rented, if there's any rented area, then you put in the actual cost. But what we also do is an imputed rent as well.
Yes.
So again, you're comparable against others. And I think it's sometimes a cost that's forgotten about, that you have other options of that land.
It's an opportunity cost.
Yes. But it's also good for, I suppose, discussion and looking at what the other options are to do with that piece of land.
Okay, so in this case for forage, where this is an owned area, we're still putting in a value of £150 a hectare in here over it all. So put that in there, save that.
And save it.
Again on the combinables. Go through in each area, we'll then put in the owned area.
Yeah. So when you put in the rent cost, it automatically calculates it, and then it would allocate it against the number of hectares.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, it's just to be comparable. It's opening up options. It's something that's reported at an individual farm level. We never discuss that at the group.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a sensitive area, but I think it's really important that you're aware of what that land's worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that.
And especially with the potato land is
Which we're very often rented in.
And competitive as well, isn't it? So
yeah. Which stops people discussing things openly in the group.
So we normally report excluding rent and finance, but in a lot of cases the rent is quite an important part of that enterprise cost. Okay.
Okay, so that's all the rental land values gone in there for the forage, commodities and potatoes, which then we down to livestock building rent.
So that's only if you were renting a building for your animals. So again, probably dairy would be one that you'd maybe rent a building for livestock for your replacement or something. So you could put a value in there. Yeah.
Equally, if it was two different companies, one was renting off another, then you do that. Okay.
And the last section is the admin and finance costs.
All right. And this is where, so in my experience, we tend to just pull it straight out of the accounts and then allocate it how we feel it should be allocated to.
And this is the section that you can fill in for your own benefit. I would suggest you put it in if you've got it, but it's not discussed outside apart from your individual.
So it will still generate the reports even if you don't put them in?
Yes,
It doesn't, Loan interest is 0, purchase interest.
So this is interest, not capital. And then the last section.
Charges and fees.
Well done.
Super.
So it's been quite easy because we've got all the information in front of us. I think the hardest bit is probably getting that information where a bit of time's taken. And it's coming from all over the place, isn't it? So it's quite useful to be in one place. But you could do it if you knew, and on stages if you wanted, and getting information from different places.
Certainly in my experience when I did my data, I just had a few sort of afternoons in here and just kept pulling the information out. So my Gatekeeper data for all the growing costs, and then going through my payroll software to then work out my labour costs and things. It was quite nice to, and then accounts, pull some of that information out, all going onto the accounts package and just pulling things out bit by bit. And actually what we were finding is I was finding information out that I should have known, but things that weren't being entered correctly onto the systems that I was then reading off. So it was quite a therapeutic exercise for me to suddenly say, actually I haven't got this right. I was paying too much for that, or this has been allocated against the wrong machine. It was quite good to be able to go through it.
Yeah, good. And I think there's a lot of learning being done just in gathering that information and understanding your accounts better. You sometimes find that it's not always the farmer themselves that's uploading the data. It could be the secretary or the wife or somebody else. And for all you'll see the invoices coming in, you don't necessarily have the full picture for the 12 months.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of learning done even to get to this stage.
Absolutely. Data gathering, you look at information in ways that you might not until it's been reported to you. So it's very good.
Good. So
Right.
so yes, that's the upload finished. So we just save that and then go back out, and we would then pull off the reports.